I think one of the things that museums can do is just spend some time watching visitors. Go out in the galleries and listen and watch and observe. Uh, and and actually, something that some institutions are doing is they're actually doing some videotaping in their galleries. You need to ask people for their permission, but then they're just sitting down as a staff together and looking at this video and talking about what people are doing. And some of them focus on families, some of them focus on school groups. So that can be very, very helpful. There's also literature out there and research that's focusing on these dimensions of the museum experience. And actually, there's several doctoral students and master's students at this meeting. Actually, I was just at a table where they were saying they didn't even know one another, that perhaps something that would be really helpful to the field and certainly to the students and to the agency is just to have a database of the work that people are doing and where they're doing it. So those are a few ideas. Well, I think it would be very arrogant of me to think that it's actually changing that. But I think, as we talked about at the end of the session, I don't believe it has to be either or. I think actually it can be both and. People actually know that these institutions have collections, and they are interested in them. They just don't want that to be the only reason that they're there. And some of it's about being creative. Also, I was talking with Nils a few moments ago about museums that are thinking about inviting English language teachers who are teaching actually adult immigrants to come into the art museum and teach their classes there. When you think about it, what a wonderful sort of win-win situation, because it's so much nicer for people who are learning English to have something to talk about. Actually, the way they end this program is the families are invited to the museum, and these adults who have been learning English get to be the guide for their family. And they love the art, and it's a great sort of forum for discussion. And actually, one of the things they've learned is that some of the people actually know a lot about art or are art makers themselves. So it's opened up all these other possibilities. I think this notion also of engaging people to be data gatherers in some instances. In some of the history museums are doing that quite effectively. There's a whole team project, speaking of that difficult to reach group, that the Chicago History Museum have been working with. And these youth are gathering oral histories. They actually are learning how to collect objects, and they're actually developing exhibitions. And that project has written a book about those experiences. I think what's critical about them, all of these ideas, is there's this notion of co-creation, which, and as we talked about yesterday, letting go a little bit. And as I said, I don't think it means that you can't be celebrating art or celebrating history. In fact, if anything, you're sort of making those connections and helping people see that they do that in their everyday lives as well. I am fascinated with the idea that what museums help us do is both understand ourselves in a very personal and intimate way, but that they also are opportunities to see our place within our society, and frankly, in some institutions across time, across lots of time. And so I actually And I think that that's something that could resonate with people of all kinds. I mean, there's always those questions of who am I, and how do I belong? How do I matter? And in fact, often our collections reflect people that belonged or mattered, or this institution, Arkin, is a great example. People pushing against what matters and saying, wait a minute. And so I think that I think sometimes, and I believe you said this yesterday, focus on knowledge distribution and dissemination rather than on thinking about the processes of learning and knowledge production. And all of us do that all the time. And so in some ways, it's almost humanizing our institutions more and being a little more playful in a serious way. I mean, once again, people know they haven't come to a baseball game or to an amusement park. They're very respectful, if anything, too respectful. When we were visiting Naturama on Saturday, you know, they were so proud of the fact that they have all these hands-on exhibitions. Well, I was very much, instead of looking at the exhibits, sometimes watching visitors, and there happened to be some families, and I heard several parents tell children not to touch. Once again, I don't speak Danish very well nor understand all Danish, but I could tell when a parent was going, no, you know, don't touch. And then later I realized that there were some things that children could touch or adults could touch and some not in the same space. And so it was very difficult to know. And yet when I talked to the staff, and I'm not trying to be critical, but I said, how do people know that they can touch? They said, oh, people just know that. And in fact, I even asked, can people touch? Because I didn't know that after I saw the first parent say, no, don't touch. At any rate, I think that we're sort of learning how to change the notion of what an institution is, but we're still catching up to figuring out how to communicate that in all cases.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.